introduce you to Mr. Ashrafi Bhagat. She's the Ashrafi Bhagat. She's been a great art lover, a historian, and done a lot of extensive work on art history, especially on the Madras School. She's done voluminous work on the Madras School of Art, and she's very well versed with the various mediums and things. So I thought it would be very appropriate that Ashrafi should talk on this medium of collage, which again it's not that popular today. People normally associate collage with the regular scrapbook collage that you do in schools and colleges. They don't look at it as an art medium. Ashrafi, I think will throw light on the collage art form. Please speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramani, for inviting me to give this very brief, short talk on what the collage is. Actually, the word has been quite abused, misused in common parlance in the way we talk, and we say, oh, I've done a collage and I've done, a collage of this and a collage of that. But actually, collage as an artistic medium of expression, goes back to Pablo Picasso and George Braque, as Ramani mentioned it. And it was part of what is known as the development of Cubism, which Picasso had inaugurated or had brought into being in 1907 with his very, very important and a seminal work, Le Demoiselles d'Avignon. When he created that work, he didn't have the guts in 1907 to show it even to his friends, because he felt that what will anybody think of it, or how will it ever be received? But finally, when he showed it to his own artist friends, they themselves were quite, taken aback that Picasso, who can do such good skilled works, has produced a painting which is totally fractured, fragmented. There is no sense of perspective, and more than that, there were no beautiful forms as such, but rather he had derived his inspiration from the African masks. And this, he had seen it in an ethnographic museum in Paris, and that's where Picasso derived his inspiration and felt that this was the only mode of going back to what we call it as a pre-Renaissance mode of working. Now, he showed the work, and Braque was also there. And Braque seemed to have made a comment to one of the artist's friends. It's like drinking kerosene and then swallowing it down with broken glass. That's the jarring effect it has visually on one's sensibility. Braque saw the works and and that summer he went away and decided to do landscapes which intuitively or unconsciously or subconsciously he started fragmenting the forms that he was seeing in nature. And when he came back, he showed it to Picasso, and Picasso simultaneously also had worked, both of them had worked separately, and he also had worked on a similar lines and found that there was a lot of similarities and continuity in the way they both had perceived nature. Now, they went into a period. I need to give you this background to understand what is collage today. They went into a period of what is known as analytical cubism, and that period began in 1908. Now, they limited themselves to studio subject matter. That is, they would create a still life in the studio. They did not want any colors, they only wanted to be very monochromatic. And they said that why should we limit our seeing only to what is there in front of us, a conditioning that the Renaissance artist had created since the 14th century till about the 19th century. So they said we will break up. So if there is a flower pot and if there is a violin, he says we need to see it conceptually as a violin is or as a flower pot is, but not perceptually as we see it, where certain things get cut off because it is not there in the way we look. And this they realized was because of the way our eyes are situated. So there was a lot of scientific analysis in the way they went about analyzing the works, breaking it down, fragmenting it, and one thing they wanted to get away from was the tyranny of third-dimensional space. And this is what they completely got away from. And Picasso is said to have brought to an end a 400-year-old tradition of creating a third-dimensional space, which the Renaissance artists had so much investigated, experimented, scientifically developed it, mathematically applied it as laws of perspective. With one painting of his Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, he completely adds the third dimension. Now they kept working on in this space with a lot of studio subject matter, and they felt that there was no color. Then slowly in 1912, Picasso in the month of May created a collage, whereby he used an oilcloth which had a very, very realistic representation of a chair caning. You know the cane chairs? It was a very realistic representation. He stuck that on his canvas and he painted as shadows and also painted the alphabets J-O-U. I think that you can see that picture here, which is there in one of Ramani's and he did not do it on a square or a rectangular canvas. He took an oval canvas. He did not frame it, but rather put a coil rope around it. Now the question was, why did Picasso did what he did? First and foremost, Picasso said that he wanted to disassociate color from form. And there was no color in the analytical phase, so they brought back color. And now they felt, Picasso especially felt, by using a very realistically printed chair caning, he said, why should one depict an object or paint an object? Why can't one use it when it is available? And that is how he got this chair caning material and he put it on the surface of the canvas. Now there is a distinction between what we call it as a collage and what Braque created in September of the same year, what is known as a papier collé. It's a French word. Papier means paper. Colle means sticking onto any surface. Now these are the two basic categories. Collage is where you can use any material you want. It can be paper, it can be cloth, it can be any textured object, and it creates a lot of visual, it creates a visual titillation. When you are looking at it, there is a tendency for one to reach out, to touch, and it provides a very different texture. And this is what exactly Picasso was looking for, because he was getting tired of working in a monochrome within a studio and also the still life. Now, how did Picasso ever think of coming up with such an idea? And this is explained by George Braque, who said that, we wanted to use paper, we used newspaper. But we used newspaper not as a newspaper, but rather we used it as a vase or as a bottle. Which means that you are disassociating that paper completely as a newspaper and making it into something which is very different and very distinct. Which means again that the meaning completely changes from the point of reference to a reinvention to a point of creation where it becomes something else. Now this difference was to again completely do away with this very naturalistic method of representation, which is trompe-l'oeil, where it fools the eye. And Braque said we did not want to fool the eye, we wanted to fool the mind. And that is how they began to use all these different kinds of materials. Now this attempt by Picasso and Braque was also the result of scientific inventions that had happened around this time in 1908, 1909, where the atom was broken up into molecules. And they said that anything can happen in reality. Like Kandinsky said, if a whole rock has to blow up and disintegrate in front of me, I will not be surprised, because that's the way the reality is. Meaning to say that reality is in a state of permanent change. So we need not look at reality as we are looking at nature with its natural forms, but we can look at reality in a very different way. So that is how Picasso is said to be the creator of the first pop art tradition. We generally credit it to the 1950s and 1960s with those pop artists like Andy Warhol and Rauschenberg and many others. But here we have the creation of a pop art because he used what was available as popular material, and he used it in his works. Now, what Ramani has done is, he has taken this papier cord Both collage and papier are very challenging artistic mediums of expression. Of course, they didn't have any concept as such when Picasso and Braque were working, but rather they were exploring materials, and that was what was uppermost in their minds, because they wanted to dissociate color, they wanted to bring in more texture and create that kind of a visual titillation. Now, in the year 1912 it started, today is 2012, and I'm very happy that Ramani, it really gladdens my heart to know that somebody has thought of celebrating this medium of expression, which not many artists would want to touch upon, for a simple fact that it is very, very challenging. You need to conceptualize the concept, you need to bring in a concept, which Ramani has been working with concepts. Then you have to visualize what forms you are going to put on it. Now once these two things are put in place, then begins the search for materials. What is the right material which needs to be cut in a proper way and placed so that it will give the image of a form that is required. I have been to Ramani's studio and I have seen you have to wade through piles of paper, use magazines, etc. And I always wondered how he knew from where to get what he has to get in order to create what he has created. It's a very, very challenging expression, and it does require certain sensibility, which Ramani has exploited it, explored it, and he's been working consistently at it. That's what I admire about his works, is that he hasn't given up and says, no, it doesn't sell, I'm going to move it to painting. As a matter of fact, he has stuck to this medium and he has developed it, carried it further. I can't think of many artists who have worked in this medium of collage or papier. His is exclusively papier because he doesn't use any other material. It's Farhan Mujib who lived in Delhi. Unfortunately, the man passed away in December suddenly, and he has created collages unbelievable, like miniature paintings. If you look at it, he has cut small pieces of paper and created large works. And he's another artist who comes to my mind. Beyond that, I don't think, I can think of any artist who has indulged in this form of medium as a personal expression. And I find that Ramani, with the maturity of his experience, of his age, etc., has brought in also a lot of philosophy into his works. See, that is also what makes his works very different. They are not simply a collection of variety of images that he has put together, but rather he has created, like one would create a painting. That's the way he has created these collages, which has a lot of meaning. And that not that they are very dull or that they are very insipid, he also has brought in a lot of color. And it is that color which has been again used and juxtaposed with a very fine sensibility that makes his works very subtle, very attractive, and definitely it sets his works apart. I'm a great admirer of Ramani's works, and especially of this medium, because I know it is a very difficult medium. Because I teach in Fine Arts department, and I know that when I give a topic like collage to my students, they are lost. They simply cut, pieces of paper and they put it together and say, this is a collage. It may be a collage, yes, but it is not a collage in the actual sense of the word of, mentally visualizing it and then, bringing it alive on a surface. And what kind of material to use, what one needs to cut. Especially I love the Ganesha at the entrance, which is only based on the concept of time. And Ganesha is something which we all revere and which we all adore as a very pedestrian god who always helps us out. And to have that connection with time, gives it even greater depth to that particular work. So, Ramani, I wish you all the best and congratulations for such an effort in bringing this alive, and especially in this centenary year. 2012 also is a centenary year of KCS Panikar's birth. It's also the birth centenary of KK Hedba, the Karnataka artist, of course, who lived most of his life in Bombay. And to celebrate this medium in 2012 is really very something. So thank you.